look at Cloud Consulting, and today it's episode 8 of our AZ-900 study Cram. It's the first unit of identity and access and security. So first things first, it's going to be Active Directory services. Basically, we're going to talk about Entra ID. What is Entra ID? So Entra ID, or Active Directory Services, is essentially an IAM service, which is an identity and access management service. Access, two things, and identities are what it controls such that you can have one identity which has access to multiple things. That's kind of fundamental basis. And so Entra ID is the Active Directory in the cloud. So we'll look at these first and we'll come over to that. So what is it? Or what does it offer? Authentication, so self-service password resets. MFA, which is multi-factor authentication, so when you'd have a password, say, and a code to your phone, so it's multi-factor. Custom list of banned passwords and smart lockout services. It also provides single sign-on, so this is where you can have like one username and password for multiple apps, leveraging a single identity, and that then reduces access modifications since you're tied to one identity. So instead of having to manage loads of usernames and passwords for loads of stuff, the admin can just manage your identity. For example, if you roll off a project, kill the identity instead of having to find you everywhere. Next up, app management. So it has features such as app proxy, which is accessing on-prem securely from outside your corporate network. SaaS apps that integrate seamlessly with O365, which is Office 365. Single sign-on, and then My Apps portal, which is this here. Basically, you can log in, have a screen of apps, and then you can select from them. So this is what enterprises and stuff would use. So you can get access to the various softwares you need just through your one identity. It also has device management services. So you can manage devices just like users, meaning you can restrict certain devices, for example. And devices can be managed through tools like Intune. So who would use Entra ID? Well, IT admins for access control, app developers for when they want signing into their app, so using SSO. Users will password reset, they'll be using Entra ID services for that. And then online service subscribers, if you're using Office 365 and you're controlling access, Entra. So this part up here is that Entra, being in the cloud, it monitors sign-in attempts. However, the on-prem version, i.e. just Active Directory, doesn't. And to connect them together, so you had an on-prem Active Directory and you want to use Entra, you can connect them using this thing here called an Entra Connect, meaning you can sign on here and you can access here. So that's Entra. Now let's look at Entra Domain Services. So Entra ID is you're looking at users, whereas Entra Domain, you can imagine you're now looking at servers, for example, and joining servers to domains, things like that. Because if you think about it, like one website could be run on multiple computers, so multiple machines would have to join the domain. So you want to manage the different servers. So the services which domain services provides, we'll get onto in a moment. But first, let's look at this point here. Domain services without need to deploy, manage, or patch domain controls. Traditionally, if you have domain services, you would have a domain controller. Now, a domain controller is a server in a network that manages security and access to resources through Active Directory. So you don't need this anymore because you can use the cloud version. And so its focus is in managing servers, virtual machines, and legacy apps that are traditionally connected to a Windows domain. What does connected to a Windows domain mean? Well, it means that a computer, server, or other network device is joined to a centralized network managed by Windows Server using Active Directory. This then allows you to use multiple servers to run one app, for instance, right? And so the services that it provides to do this, or examples of services it provides, is domain joins. This is adding servers on to a specific domain such that they can be used for one app, multiple servers. Group policy, and this is enabling centralized management of security and settings across domain joined devices, so across multiple servers that are domain joined. LDAP provides a protocol for applications to query and manage directory information. So if they want user details, for example, And then Kerberos/NTLM authentication. This offers secure authentication methods to verify user identities. So another authentication service essentially. And so this domain services is good if you want to run legacy apps in the cloud, because if you read this here, allows organizations to seamlessly migrate on-prem applications to Azure by enabling users to log in with existing credentials and manage access using current user accounts and groups. So basically, you can just move your normal stuff where you would have like this domain controllers and stuff. All those services can be provided in the cloud. How? You get a unique namespace, which is a DNS. And the way that this works within Azure is that within a region, you'll have a replica set of domain controllers, meaning you'll have the exact same domain controller replicated twice for high availability. Now, how is this information then synced up? Well, we zoom in here, you can see you have your on-prem Active Directory. And then here you have your Azure AD tenant, which is your Entra. And in the back here, you have your managed domain. And so there's a two-way sync between Entra and your on-prem to make sure that this is always the same. So it's syncing up users, groups, passwords, SIDs, and to Azure Active Directory. Whereas here, so these two sync together, but only Entra calls back to the managed domain to automatically background sync the data that it's got, so that your on-prem is only ever talking to this Entra, and then the Entra talks to the managed domain. And so that, in a nutshell, is everything you need to know for Entra for AZ-900.